The Ambassador. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, for that kind introduction. It is your delight to join you again at the Chatham House. In my 10 years as the Chinese ambassador in UK, I've spoken at Chatham House several times. Every time I leave with new thoughts and new inspirations. Lord O'Neill asked me to talk about China's foreign policy and the international agenda for 2020. I'd like to start with how China is responding to COVID-19. This is not only because it is a topical issue which you must be following closely. More importantly, the way we are handling this virus, I think, could help people understand China's vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind. This is a basic concept underpinning China's foreign policy. It is also at the very center of Xi Jinping's thought on diplomacy. The outbreak of COVID-19 has been a major challenge to both China and the world in a very critical time, both in terms of the speed of its spread, the scope of its impact, and the difficulty to contain it. In combating this disease, the Chinese government has regarded the safety and health of the Chinese people as a top priority. Under the strong leadership of President Xi Jinping, all the Chinese people have been standing united. The most comprehensive, strict, and thorough measures have been adopted, deployed, and strengthened across the country. The whole nation has been mobilized to fight a people's war against the virus. WHO has spoken highly of China's efforts. In its words, China is setting a new standard for outbreak response. By taking these measures, China is living up to its responsibility of safeguarding the safety and health of the Chinese people. It is also contributing to global public health. We have done more than what we are asked to do by the WHO and under the international health regulations. We have made a huge sacrifice to slow down the spread of the epidemic to other parts of the world. China has also engaged in international cooperation in an open, transparent, and responsible manner in order to safeguard and improve global public health at this very critical moment. Dr. Tedros, Director General of WHO, has emphasized that China's measures are not only protecting its own people, but also protecting the people in the whole world, and that China has bought time for the rest of the world. Thanks to our persistent efforts, the prevention and control measures are showing positive effect. The cure rate has kept rising, and the mortality rate is maintained at a relatively low level. China has a strong leadership of the Communist Party of China. The advantage of socialism with the Chinese characteristics, unparalleled mobilization capability, and unprecedented comprehensive national strength, and the solidarity of the Chinese people. I'm confident that we will win this battle against the virus. A few days ago, President Xi Jinping called a meeting to map out coordinated plans for epidemic response, as well as social and economic development. While still focusing on containing the virus, China is also doing its best to minimize the economic impact so that China will continue to be a powerhouse for global growth. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 is posing a challenge for all, so is tackling it a responsibility for all. This battle against the virus once again shows that countries of the world are invariably associated with one another, sharing will and woe. In other words, human society is a community with a shared future. This concept, proposed by President Xi Jinping, transcends the differences of social system, history, culture, and development stage. It embodies the common values of mankind. It reflects the trend of the times, and it answers the most important and urgent questions facing the world. That is, where should the world is heading, and where does the future of mankind lie? The ongoing battle against COVID-19 is a living proof of how much we all belong to this community with a shared future for mankind, and how urgently we all need to come together to build it. To safeguard the health and well-being of mankind, we need this spirit of community. Virus knows no borders. It is a common challenge facing all mankind. To safeguard global public health, countries must join hands and stand shoulder to shoulder. If we come to each other's aid in this time of difficulty and fight for our shared future, we can build an impregnable fortress and win the battle against the virus. To realize sustained stability and security in the world, we need this spirit of community. The world is undergoing profound changes and seen in the century, while the international landscape is undergoing profound and complex changes. Mankind has once again come to a crossroads where we must make choices and answer these questions. Do we want peace or war? Should we move forward or backward? Is it better to engage in dialogue or confrontation? Is it now a century for inclusiveness or estrangement? Our shared future lies in our own hands. The right choice is to pull in the same direction and address challenges together in the spirit of community with a shared future. If we choose wisely, we'll embrace the peaceful, safe, and beautiful world. Such a future is the common aspiration of all people in the world. To uphold fairness and justice in the world, we need this spirit of community. The world is entering the third decade of the 21st century. Yet there are still some people who dream of resurrecting the Cold War, worship hegemony and power politics, clamor for unilateralism, and trample on other countries' sovereignty. Some politicians and media have attacked the development paths of other countries, fanned ideological confrontation, made such racist remarks as the sick man of Asia. Just like COVID-19, these man-made viruses are the common enemy of mankind. It is therefore the common responsibility of the international community, in the interest of the shared future, to ensure that justice overcomes evil, truth conquers lies, and inclusiveness prevails over discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, amid the current situation and in face of the challenges in the world, what shall we do to build a community with a shared future for mankind? I think we should make the following 4 efforts. First, to safeguard international security, we should pull in the same direction instead of undercutting each other. COVID-19 is posing a threat to global public health security. China has worked with all countries in the world and made tremendous efforts and sacrifice to check the spread of the virus. In face of the various traditional and non-traditional challenges to security, major countries have upon them special responsibilities. They must resist the temptation to look inward or confront and undercut each other. They should take up their due responsibilities, make concrete efforts, and inject positive energy into global response to challenges. China advocates a new concept of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. We oppose the Cold War mentality and power politics. We stand ready to work with other countries to pursue peace and security. Having experienced untold sufferings of wars in modern times, China knows all too well that peace never comes easy. Therefore, China remains committed to the path of peaceful development and hopes that other countries will do the same. If peaceful development becomes a global consensus, harmonious coexistence and common development can be achieved for all. China has not started a single war or conflict over the past 70 years since the founding of New China. We strive to become a better version of ourselves. We do not want to threaten, challenge, or replace anyone. As China grows stronger, it will make greater contribution to international security and world peace. Second, to promote common development, we should engage in win-win cooperation rather than indulging in the game of I win, you lose. I know many of you might be concerned about the impact of the epidemic in China's economy. I want to stress that any negative impact is short-term and temporary. This is because China's economy is highly resilient. Its immune system is robust. The fundamentals that sustain long-term growth has not changed and will not change. At the same time, the momentum of economic globalization cannot be reversed. Countries have become so interdependent economically that it is impossible to divide the vast ocean of global economy into ponds and puddles. In face of the difficulties and challenges, it is all the more important that we deepen cooperation through opening up and promote development through cooperation. The clamors for decoupling and scientific and technological blockade against China would only land the advocate in self-imposed isolation, restriction, and backpedaling. Opening up has been the most salient signature of China since this policy was adopted more than 40 years ago. Going forward, China will continue to open its market wider to the world. With China's foreign investment law going into effect on January 1st, foreign businesses will have a greater access to Chinese market, more opportunities for closer cooperation with their Chinese partners. It is our hope that countries of the world will all remain committed to open cooperation and foster a fair, open, and non-discriminatory environment for Chinese companies, including but not limited to Huawei. Third, we probably talk about Huawei in a moment. I think Jim has a question for me in detail. Third, to safeguard international order, we should uphold multilateralism and oppose unilateralism. China is the biggest developing country in the world. It is one of the founding members of United Nations and was the first country to put its signature on the UN Charter. China upholds the international systems with the UN at its core, champions the norms governing state-to-state relations based on international law, and defends the multilateral system with the WTO as its cornerstone. As a staunch supporter of multilateralism, China's action is a world of difference from the trumpeter of unilateralism who has withdrawn from a number of international organizations and treaties. The outbreak of COVID-19 reminds us once again that upholding multilateralism, improving global governance, and enhancing international coordination are order of the day. Going it alone or following a beggar-thy-neighbor policy saves no one from trouble. Instead, such an approach would only undermine the interests of both oneself and the rest of the world. In the battle against COVID-19, China has acted in the spirit of a community with a shared future. We've been open and transparent. We've supported the leadership of WHO, stood shoulder to shoulder with the international community, and made a positive contribution to improving global governance in public health. Fourth, to advance the civilization of mankind, we should respect and learn from each other rather than boasting arrogance and building walls. I've been a diplomat for 46 years, having worked in Africa, North America, Asia, and Europe. All these years, I've been deeply impressed by rich variety of cultures and civilizations of different countries. Each civilization has its unique strength. It is the differences and diversity of the civilizations that make our world a colorful place. As President Xi Jinping said, civilizations have become richer and more colorful with exchanges and mutual learning. Such exchanges and mutual learning form an important drive for human progress and global peace and development. In recent days, however, some people once again resort to the cliché of a clash of civilizations and made irresponsible remarks on China's response to COVID-19 and development models. This not only reflects their arrogance and prejudice, but also betrayed their ignorance. From repeated lessons of history and from our own experience, we have found it too well and too obvious that to address the common challenges to mankind, we should draw upon the wisdom and absorb nutrients of different civilizations. The secret of continuity of Chinese civilization, which has gone uninterrupted for more than 5,000 years, lies in our inclusiveness and our pursuit for harmonious coexistence with other civilizations. In responding to public health crisis, the system of a socialism with the Chinese characteristic is showing strength in uniting all sectors and pooling all resources. Going forward, we'll continue to modernize China's system and governance capability, improve the system and mechanism for major epidemics response, and strengthens national public health emergency management system. We're also willing to learn from other countries' experience in safeguarding public health. We advocate respect for diversity of civilizations. The world does not need a line drawn between the East and the West, and should bridge the gap between the South and the North. The cliché of clash of civilizations and accents of racial discriminations are out of tune. with our times. All the countries of the world should cherish our common home on earth and take concrete actions to contribute to building a community with a shared future for mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 2020 is a milestone in China's development. This year, we achieved the first centenary goal, namely to complete the building of a moderately prosperous society and eliminate absolute poverty across China. In May, China will host the second United Nations Global Sustainable Transport Conference in Beijing to promote the building of global partnership for connectivity. In November, China will host the third CIIE, China International Import Expo, to share with the world the benefits of China's development. This year marks the 45th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and the EU. The two sides will hold a number of important events, including the Summit of China and Central and Eastern European countries, and work together to take China-EU relationship to the next level. This year also marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. China will continue to engage deeply in global governance and contribute China's wisdom and strength to the settlement of global issues. Later this year, China will host COP15 to the Convention of Biological Diversity, and the UK will host the COP26 to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. These two conferences will provide invaluable opportunities and important platforms for closer cooperation between China and the UK in climate change, environmental protection, and wildlife conservation. The year 2020 also marks the 5th anniversary of China-UK Golden Era, launched by President Xi Jinping's state visit to the UK in 2015. A few days ago, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Johnson had a telephone conversation. This conversation charted the course for the development of China-UK relations. China and the UK are natural partners in building a community with a shared future for mankind. Both are permanent members of UN Security Council, both champion multilateralism and support free trade, and both are great civilizations and regard as their mission to promote the world peace and development. It is important that the two countries take up more responsibilities and make more efforts in building a community with a shared future for mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese word, I do not know how many of you speak Chinese, but I'll share with you Chinese wisdom and philosophy. The Chinese word for crisis reflects the wisdom and the philosophical thinking of Chinese people. It is a combination of two words. Crisis and opportunities. Chinese people always believe there are opportunities in crisis, and we always try our best to turn crisis into opportunities. Earlier this month, when I was on BBC Andrew Ma show, I asked Mr. Ma if he speaks Chinese. He answered, "I speak no Chinese, Ambassador. I think you can notice that." And I explained to him the Chinese word crisis, and he listened attentively. I was not trying to teach him Chinese language. I was using the word to explain the philosophy of Chinese people. Winston Churchill once said, "Difficulties mastered are opportunities won." Winston Churchill is a great master of language, though I don't think he speaks any Chinese. But his words certainly show that there are many similarities between Chinese and Western civilizations. We should keep these wise words in mind. Let's have more confidence in our capability to overcome difficulties and work together to turn crises into opportunities. Together, we can ensure the steady and sustained development of China-UK golden era. Together, we can promote the building of a community for shared future for mankind. Together, we can make our world a better place with lasting peace and common prosperity. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.